Welcome back, everybody, to Toronto Today here on The Parlay. I'm your host, Luca Rosano, alongside my co host, Michael Singh. And we are back on this Wednesday to talk a lot about the Maple Leafs. We'll get into some Raptors future bets. And we got some TFC breaking news that our very own Mikey Singh broke a while ago. And we're going to get into our best bets, which my hot streak came to an end because while everybody was laughing at me on the show for taking the easy way out, taking the easy pick with the Leafs, they actually lost. They lose to the Blue Jackets 4-3 in overtime. The Leafs did score with about 2:07 left in the third to tie the game up and forced overtime. And once they scored that game-tying goal, I thought my bet would have been secured. But then Patrick Laine scores the game winner in overtime, 20 seconds in. As you look at the matchup between he and Matthews, Laine had 2 goals, while Matthews did have 1 goal and 2 assists. And this was just a tough loss for the Leafs. This was a self-inflicting loss. They gave the puck over constantly in all 3 zones, leading to 3 of 4 goals against. And now, for the first time since October, the Maple Leafs have lost 3 games in a row. So before we get into some of the players and concerns that I want to talk about, what was just your overall reaction from another disappointing defeat for the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it, honestly, Luca. I'm not too concerned, to be honest with you. As I mentioned, heading into that game, like historically, Columbus has been a very tough opposition for the Leafs, and that proved to be true last night. Like right off the bat, I think the Blue Jackets outshot the Leafs like 15-7 in the first period, and honestly dominated and dictated the pace of play early on, and had a few chances just right out of the gate. So wasn't honestly too surprised. As I mentioned to you yesterday, this is probably a game that I was staying away from, or leading towards Columbus for that value, because of what's happened historically between these two sides. And the Leafs away from home continue to, I don't want to say struggle, because relatively they're still decent, but as opposed to where they are at home, they still have to figure some stuff out. And I thought, they did well to battle back and enforce overtime, keep their foot on the gas pedal there. Obviously, Jason Spezza coming up with the clutch game tying goal with I think less than a minute left, and Austin Matthews had a really good game, a goal and 2 assists, and I thought he was fantastic. That whole line was actually really good all night. But the one thing I guess I am a little bit concerned about, Luca, is that second line with John Tavares, William Nylander, and Alex Kerfoot, and specifically Tavares and Nylander. When you have what Kerfoot's making 3.5, Tavares making 11, Nylander making about 7, you have over $21 million on that line, and they're just not producing at that sort of value, especially when they're not going up against top pair defensemen and top forward checking lines. So I'm not too thrilled with them, and I do have some concerns about whether or not they can bounce back here. But overall, with the Leafs, it was just it's a rough patch, and it's something I'm kind of glad that they're going through at this point, as opposed to later on when playoffs are around the corner.
Tavares and Nylander, they had so many chances in this game. 18 shots combined, cannot muster up a goal. Mitch Marner did not find the score sheet as well, but he did have a nice highlight reel assist as he was falling down. I watched that a couple times. Very, very nice. What were your thoughts on Labushkin? He had overall, I would say, a solid outing, but there was that one instance that the puck went over his skate, bad bounce, led to the go-ahead goal for the Blue Jackets, and that was really, to me, the crucial point of that game. It was tied before that had happened. But despite that, how did he look to you overall on that Leafs blue line?
Yeah, that's a good shout, because Labushkin obviously making his Leafs debut last night. I thought he was okay. That's really the definition of his play, though. He's never going to do something that kind of gets you out of your seat. He's very steady. He wins a lot of battles along the boards, and I thought we saw a lot of that heading into the third period before he made that obviously um, classic, I guess, Leaf sort of mistake there on the back, and that we haven't been accustomed to as much. He was, yeah, like I said, he was decent. He was kind of as advertised, and whenever it's your debut, I'm sure you get bunch of jitters. You try to do too much, and I thought for the most part he wasn't trying to do too much. There is a part of his game where he can be kind of wild and can kind of pinch a little bit too much and step up on the play a little bit too much, but it's part of the reason why the Leafs also liked him, because he can disrupt those plays. So Yeah, he was okay for me aside from that third period.
And then another thing I want to get into here, the Maple Leafs, they have now given up 15 goals in 3 games. Jack Campbell specifically allowed 4 goals on 30 shots in this loss against the Blue Jackets. Is it time to be legitimately concerned with the goaltending for this team moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's been concerning for quite some time. I saw a stat that since the start of December, they're ranked 30th in the league in high danger save percentage. And had before December, they were actually ranked number one in the league. So there's a serious drop off there, and whether that comes down to goaltending, defending, they're giving up a lot of odd man rushes. I thought Jack Campbell, maybe one or two of the goals last night, he could have had, but they are giving up a lot of chances. I thought he made a lot of good saves as well, and I don't have an answer whether it's the goaltending or the defense, but either way, something needs to kind of get tweaked and get back on order because this Leafs team is it's not a successful brand of hockey unless you get good goaltending. And what, like I said, I don't know if that comes down to the defense or the goalie itself, but something needs to sharpen up there.
Yeah, there was one of the goals in particular. It looked like Campbell got screened, and that is a good point. You don't know if it's one or the other, or a combination of both. But right now, I mean, the Maple Leafs have not looked like their former selves. Their first 3 game skits since late October. Fans are now going down that same path of emotions of here we go again. And this is a team that, yeah, they're not playing a great brand of hockey right now. They're losing games. I would say their last 2 going into this one were pretty bad losses. And this one, too, I know they were going up against a really good Blue Jackets team on the road, but looking at some of those mistakes that were made, looking at some of the goals that were allowed, it's a head scratcher for a team that a lot of people have high hopes for. And now that's going to lead me into the next part of this segment, and that is the NHL trade deadline. We already saw the Leafs make a move for Labushkin, and something tells me they might not be done trying to make moves as Jake Muzzin, who was seriously injured in that game against the Canadiens. He is still going through concussion protocols. Now, if he's out long term, you would have to think the Leafs are going to make another trade before the NHL trade deadline, and they will have to add another defenseman. So, what do you think the Leafs could do in wake of Muzzin potentially being out long term? Could you see them add another defenseman and even a top six winger to elevate this team into the second half of the season?
Yeah, that's an important factor is whether or not Muzzin is out long term because then you could throw Muzzin on LTIR. His salary cap doesn't count against the Leafs cap hit at least during the regular season, and the Leafs could go turn around and add someone who's making about 5.5 million. I forget exactly what Mudzin's going to pay, but that's a significant amount of salary heading into the next month's trade deadline, which is about a month away. So we have some time to kind of reevaluate there. And if Muzzin is out long term, Luca, then yeah, absolutely. They have to go get another defenseman. There's a couple names out there that are rumored. John Manson's one who I really like with Anaheim. I thought he's a really good skater for someone his size. Kind of gives the Leafs what they need there at the back and can move the puck really well. John Klingberg, who's obviously a superstar, is going to come at a hefty price if the Leafs do decide to go out there and acquire him. 1 year left on his deal at $4.25 million. So the money there would work. It's just, the cost of acquiring someone like a John Klingberg, which of course, like I said, would be significant. And maybe some other pieces that might not cost as much. Dylan DeMello is a player with the Winnipeg Jets who could fit this mold of the Leafs blue line, but the Winnipeg Jets are kind of picking it back up, so maybe they won't be sellers. Adam Larson with the Seattle Kraken. Obviously, Edmonton Oilers fans know Adam Larson really well. He has 3 years left after this one at $4 million per season, so actually a pretty reasonable cap hit. The question is, do the Leafs want to make that sort of commitment? And I think Larson would actually be a really good fit on this blue line. A player who's known for his not only his transition game, but his ability to just straight up defend. He's known as sort of a shutdown defender, and this team obviously could use someone like that. And also Damon Severson, New Jersey Devils. This is a guy who probably costs a little bit more to get out of New Jersey because he's only, 27 years old. But he's another guy who could potentially fit that bill that the Leafs are looking for. So yeah, there's a lot of options out there. I think, as I mentioned, it's probably a good time to make a trade like this because of the amount of options that are out there. I think I don't recall the defense market ever being this viable here with the Leafs. And if an opportunity comes that Kyle Dubas likes the price of, absolutely, I think they should add another defenseman. And one thing I want to quickly add is on the broadcast last night, Sportsnet's Elliot Friedman, who's like the NHL insider guru now, taking over for kind of Bob McKenzie there. He mentioned the Leafs have some interest in JT Miller of Vancouver, and JT Miller is a super, like, really appealing forward. One of the, I think, one of the most underrated players in the league, and his work rate, his ability to actually play defense despite he's a forward, he brings a lot of that grit and that toughness to this Leafs team. I think would go a long way, and he's scoring at almost a point per game pace this season. So that's a guy who potentially would fit the mold here and not only help out the Leafs offensively, but I think he would actually go a long way in helping out the Leafs team defensively. So it's an exciting time kind of leading up to that deadline, but I think a lot of it depends on what happens here with Jake Muzzin.
Yeah, that was perfectly said. I think the Leafs will be busy once again before the trade deadline, as they know that there's a lot of expectations on this team for this season, and they definitely have to make some noise come playoff time, or else they're going to be hearing the noise once again for what feels like a very long time. Okay, we are going to see what happens with the Leafs. Their next game is on Thursday against the Wild. We'll see if they can snap that 3-game skid. We're now going to get into some future talk, and we're going to talk about Scottie Barnes, the rookie sensation for the Raptors. It feels like the Raptors have been off for so long. They will be back in action on Friday. But I wanted to take this opportunity to discuss Scottie Barnes' rookie odds. So right now, Evan Mobley is the clear favorite to win the award, rightfully so. He's at minus 475, wherever you get your odds. Scottie Barnes is tied with Kate Cunningham with the second best odds at about plus 900. Do you think Scottie Barnes can still win this award, or do you think Evan Mobley is ultimately going to win it?
Well, yeah, I think Evan Mobley is definitely the favorite right now, and rightfully so. He's having a really good season, and we got a taste of that during that All-Star weekend of just how good and how special this guy can be. Like, I think Evan Mobley is sort of the future of big men in this league, and the type of style that he plays, it's just so perfect for where the league is going. Big fan of his game. Obviously, the Cavaliers are also doing really well, so that also boasts his chances, but I wouldn't rule Scottie Barnes out of it yet. Um, he started the season off super, super well. Then as games kind of caught up to him, sort of hit a rut. And
Yeah.
that's kind of common with most rookies as they're not used to playing as many games as they do in the NBA, and especially Scottie Barnes, who has been logging a lot of minutes as a Toronto Raptors starter. So I think he's learning on the fly in terms of what it takes to be a professional. And I'm not ruling out the chance that Scottie Barnes comes out of that All-Star break and has a big second half to the year. So I saw him this morning at plus 1,000. And I don't hate that odds as sort of a long bet there, a long
Yeah.
shot, because I wouldn't be surprised if the fourth overall pick this year comes out and with a chip on his shoulder, knowing how far behind he is in versus Evan Mobley in the race, that he comes up and surprises a few people and captures that award at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think it could be tight over the next 24 games or so. I think Evan Mobley will ultimately take it. I think he's the favorite for a reason. Not only is he playing great basketball, he's the focal point of that Cavs team. And not only that, you bring up a good point. Look where the Cavs are in the standings. I think that's going to factor into it a lot. And it did factor into when the Cavaliers had a second All-Star named after the injury went down, and you saw Jared Allen get named to the All-Star game. It's because of where the Cavaliers are positioned. Obviously, it helped that the game was in Cleveland, but that does a whole ton. When you talk about any award, wherever that team is positioned in the standings, you definitely got to take note of that for boosting that person's odds. It's going to be a very fun race because another name not even mentioned here who I think can immerse himself into it all is Josh Giddey. He has been playing unreal basketball over the last couple of weeks. That's been heightened, of course, with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander being out and a lot of the responsibilities and duties being put on his shoulders. But I think those four guys are really going to play high-end basketball for the second half of the season. I just think it's going to go to Mobley because you look at the Raptors. I look at guys like Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., who are all going to be guys asked to do a lot of big things and are going to be guys who are going to have the ball in their hands more times than not, looking to make plays, looking to produce on their team. Whereas you look at the Cavaliers, like I said, Evan Mobley is arguably that team's best player. I mean, you can make a case for Garland being that guy who needs the ball in his hands in crucial moments. But Evan Mobley on the low block defensively, he's everywhere for that team. He is the best, if not the second best player on the Cavaliers right now. So I think that's going to be the edge that gives them this award. And you look at their last couple of numbers head to head. Yeah, you're right. Scottie Barnes has hit more rough patches, I feel, this season than a guy like Mobley, who's been pretty solid all season long. So I think Mobley does win this award. But yeah, plus 1,000, you can't go wrong with Scottie Barnes, as he's looked very good this season. And there's no reason why he couldn't get hot late in the season, prompting the Raptors into a playoff spot. So I probably would lay off that, but I think it's going to come down to Mobley, Barnes, Cunningham, and Josh Giddey as a dark horse.
Yeah, I wouldn't put Josh Giddey and Cunningham into that mix just because they're not on teams that are contending. And I'm not saying that's their fault or anything, but I just if they're doing this the entire season, sure, maybe we can talk about them making a case. I just don't think for the latter half of the year, they'll have enough time to really cement that spot based on what Mobley and Barnes have been doing, I guess, throughout the course of the year. So that's just my take on that. I think this is sort of a two-horse race. Maybe Cade Cunningham has a dark shot or dark, as a long shot as a dark horse here to kind of surprise them, even though he is the first overall pick. And it's kind of funny that he is a dark horse at this point of the year to capture that award. But I really do think it's down to Mobley or Barnes, but we'll see kind of how the rest of the season plays out. If Josh Giddey goes out there, keeps getting triple double after triple double, then maybe he can put his name into the hat. But I like all of their games. I think the NBA overall has a bright future in terms of some of these young talent coming through, and this might go down as one of the better draft classes when all's said and done that we're talking about in a couple of years.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, outside of this top four, you can talk more and more about some other guys who have been unreal this season. I mean, Green has been disappointing. That's the one guy out of this draft class. Even a guy like Jalen Suggs, who it's crazy. The Raptors were rumored to take. Imagine they took him over Barnes, and Barnes right now was in Orlando. That was a huge dodge bullet. But yeah, there have been some great names a part of this draft class. And even later on in the draft class, I mean, you look at a guy like Io of Chicago, he was taken very late. He's being dubbed as the steal of the draft. So yeah, this is definitely going to be one of the best draft classes when it's all said and done. Sticking with the theme of future bets, I thought we could do something interesting here. NBA championship bet. So with the second half of the season starting tomorrow night, let's look at our best value and best long shot NBA championship bet. So we're going with the unconventional picks here. Obviously, the favorites like the Nets, the Suns, the Warriors, those are going to be the sexy picks as we enter the second half of the season. So I'll let you start off here, Mike. First, give us your best value bet, followed by your best long shot bet with the
Okay,
NBA second half of the season coming up.
gotcha. I like this. Let's do best value first. And best value, I'm going to go Chicago Bulls at plus 2,500. This is a team that started off really, really well. They're still doing well, but they actually haven't been too healthy. And when they get all of their pieces back, which should be the case before the postseason, barring another injury, I think they're a legitimate threat here to perhaps make a deep run, as people are kind of overlooking them as a playoff type team, perhaps because of what DeMar DeRozan has done in the past. But DeMar DeRozan looks like a different type of player this year. He looks like he's taking another step in his game as a leader of that team. But it's crazy to think that he wasn't even supposed to be the first option on that team heading into the start of the year, which is a testament to, I believe, just how good the Chicago Bulls are. I think Vooch has also picked up his game with some of the others out, and I think he's kind of refound his confidence in Chicago. And then you add in people like Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball, who have both missed time, Zach LaVine as well, and that team's dangerous in my opinion. So I like the Chicago Bulls at that value at plus 2,500. Long shot pick here. I'm gonna take the LA Lakers at plus 2,800. I just don't think you can rule out LeBron in the playoffs, and I think he hits another gear. And kind of similar to the Bulls is they haven't been healthy for a lot of the season. Anthony Davis has missed a ton of time. He's going to miss more time now heading out of the All-Star break because of an injury that he suffered that'll cost him about 4 weeks. It could have been a lot worse, but Thankfully, it wasn't, and he should be ready for playoff time if the Lakers do get there. Let's put an asterisk over that because they're not too safe right now. But if they do get in, I mean, this is a team that knows how to play playoff style basketball. So let's see if that comes to fruition. Let's throw it back to you, Luca. What do you think?
I'm surprised those odds aren't worse for the Lakers. That just shows you how much the league respects LeBron. Of yeah, if the Lakers get in, they always have a chance. Just because of where Anthony Davis is at, you don't know exactly when he's going to come back, and I think there's no shot the Lakers win the championship without a healthy AD. So yeah, going back to the value best bet, I'm going to go with the Chicago Bulls as well. I love this pick. I'm surprised it's as high as it is. I mean, the Bulls are in first right now in the East. This is one of the most underrated teams in the NBA, followed by one of the more underappreciated / underrated players in the NBA, in DeMar DeRozan, who is having a very quiet MVP type season. I think he's got the 7th best MVP odds, which is ludicrous in my opinion. He's putting up big time numbers. They're comparing his season to when Michael Jordan won MVP in 1998, and DeRozan actually has better numbers. It's remarkable what he's been doing. Obviously, he broke the record that Will Chamberlain set last week. He's got this Bulls team clicking. They're thriving. They've been able to withstand all of those injuries. And like you said, once this team is fully healthy and they're back together, I know they have that vulnerability to them where they have a bunch of guys who haven't done in the playoffs. But we saw last year with the Phoenix Suns, with the exception of Chris Paul, all those guys were tasty in postseason basketball for, if not the first time, second or third time. So that was a fairly new team in that spotlight. The Chicago Bulls remind me a lot like that Suns team, that if they can get in with some momentum, some heat to them, and they get past the first round, there's no telling how far this team can go. So I really like Chicago's odds. I think they could be one of those teams that does make a run, and this finally could be that year in postseason that DeMar DeRozan erases all of those playoff demons and puts the team on his back en route to that. So I like that bet. And then for my long shot bet, I'm actually going to go with the other LA team, the Clippers, plus
Wow.
4,500. Now, the reason why I'm saying the Clippers is because Paul George could be back, I believe, in March, sometime in March or towards the end of the regular season. And I know it's a long shot for Kawhi to be back this season, but I'm not ruling that out. Let's just say the Clippers do make it to the second round of the playoffs. There could be that possibility that Kawhi comes back. Again, I'm not putting any stock into that. I'd probably put it at like 98% chance that Kawhi doesn't come back this season. But even without Kawhi, if George is there, we've seen how deep this Clippers team is. They've done a lot of good this season. They've beaten a lot of good teams. They've been competitive against some of the best teams in the league, like the Phoenix Suns, without any of their superstars. And we saw what the Clippers did last year without Kawhi. They were, 2 games away from making it to the NBA Finals. So I like those odds with the Clippers. And if you're feeling extra spicy, the Raptors are plus 5,000 to win the NBA title. I don't know how you feel about that, but I wouldn't put money on that. But, I mean, who knows with this team? They could make a deep run. But what's more interesting is Raptors playoff odds are minus 290. So what are your quick reactions to both of those numbers for the Raptors, their championship odds and their playoff odds?
Yeah, I think the plus 5,000 is probably right for the Raptors. I don't think they're ready right now to contend for a title, but at the same time, they're a team that knows how to play that type of brand, and if they can get hot, hey, who knows? But probably something I'm staying away from. In terms of them making the playoffs, yeah, I think I'm really comfortable with saying that this is a playoff type of team. They're pretty comfortable with where they are in that seventh spot, and I think they can only, yeah, it's not only, but they can definitely do something the second half of the year to even push that envelope and go even higher in the standings with the way that they've been playing for the last month and a half. So I do, I'm comfortable with taking that bet, even though you don't get the most return on it.
Now, remember, if they were to finish 7th, they would have to win a play-in game to get into the actual playoffs. They're top 6, you win that bet. But if they're in the play-in, you got to come out of the play-in in order to be a playoff team. So we'll see if the Raptors can avoid that play-in altogether. If this playoff started today or play-in started today, they would be taking on the Brooklyn Nets in a one-game playoff. And if they were to lose that game, they would still have a chance by taking on the loser of the 9 versus 10 placed game. So we'll see what happens there. Should be a fantastic finish in the NBA. We're going to switch gears now before we get into our best bets. We got something to talk about, some breaking news, if you will. Domenico Crescito will be announced as TFC's newest signing in the coming weeks. while Lorenzo Insigne will join in July. This is TFC's newest addition, and our very own Michael Singh was on this story for the longest time, and now it has finally come to fruition.
Yeah, very another great move by Toronto FC, in my opinion. He's 35 years old, so definitely on the older end, but this is a guy that can still ball out. Captain of Genoa. He can play either center back or he can shift out to left back if necessary. And it's a move that's been in the works for a very long time with this club. So I'm happy to see it finally be reported that it's pretty much across the finish line. And yeah, that announcement I do expect to come relatively soon. This is a guy who played for the Italian national team at times. And I think he's a leader overall, which is something that this team kind of needed. And you add that with Carlos Salcedo beside him in that back line, along with Chris Mavinga, and now you're looking at a really enticing back line there. So Domenico Crescito is going to be, I think, a very valuable piece to this team, and another move that should make Woodbridge happy because he's another Italian guy coming down. And I'll leave you guys with this. I don't think TFC are done scouring or scavenging Italy there. I think there's more to come there with some Italian players. So stay tuned.
Not sure if Toronto FC or Italy FC with the way things are looking. I mean, there's a lot of talent coming on over, and I'm not complaining at all. So yeah, I'm very excited about this move as well. TFC looking better by the day. Okay, let's get into those best bets as we close out the show here. I'm coming off of an L, and that I think was like my first L in like a week and a half. So I'm looking to get back into the win column. Before I give you my pick, what are you looking at tonight, Mike?
Yeah, so I'm going back to some Champions League action, and I like Manchester United against Atletico Madrid. 3 p.m. today is kickoff, and hey, Manchester United, they can be the punchline of a lot of jokes around the internet, especially of late. I mean, I think they're deserving of it, but this is also a team that hasn't lost in the last 4 games, and they're playing in Madrid tonight, and it actually bodes even better for this team right now because in the last 8 games they haven't lost away from home. Now, Atletico Madrid, meanwhile, they're kind of been the definition of inconsistent this season. They're fifth right now in La Liga, which is a lot worse than probably many expect them to, with some of the names like Antoine Griezmann and Luis Suarez on their roster. They have a really good roster on paper, but it hasn't translated to success overall. And I think in the Champions League in particular, in the group stage, they didn't win a game at home. They went 0-1 and 2. So they're playing at home today against a Manchester United team that's been good on the road. So I'm taking Man U on the money line at plus 200. I think that's good value.
Yeah, no, I like it. More Champions League action. Sign me up. For my pick, I'm going to some NCAA basketball coverage. We've been covering that on 3 point lines as we await the return of the NBA season. And I didn't do too bad last night. It was 5 of 7 overall. So hopefully tonight I can pick at least one winner for this show. And I'm going to be going with Kentucky -7 against LSU. You look at the Wildcats, they have been awesome at home. They're on a 16-0 run this year, and they have outscored their opponents by 23.5 points per game on the floor. As yeah, they have been a team that's been pretty reliable in terms of covering and winning these games, and they're going to be looking to give LSU a little taste of their own medicine because they actually lost to LSU earlier in the season. So I think Kentucky is going to show up in a big way here. I love that they're at home and they've been so dominant at home, and they have outscored their SEC opponents by 16.4 points per game. So give me Kentucky tonight to cover that 7.
There you go, NCAA. It's getting heated now, man. It's starting to. I look at the calendar now. It's almost March, and that's one of the best times of the year for sports fans and even sports betting fans. So I'm excited to kind of see how that looks in a kind of a new lens here as we take a different angle and look at this through the lens of sports betting. So let's see how that bet plays out, Luca.
And that will conclude another edition of Toronto Today here on the Parlay. Once again, thank you so much for watching or listening. You can get this wherever you find your favorite podcast, and be sure to follow us all across our social media platforms for daily content. This is Luca and Mike signing off. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you all again tomorrow.